Every animal dies. Your dog, a bird outside your window, even the oldest whale in the ocean. But here's the strange question humans have asked forever. Where do they go after death? Not just physically, not just the body, but the soul, the energy, the thing that made them alive. Today, we're going to explore what science says, what ancient cultures believed, and what might actually happen to every animal that has ever lived and died on this planet. Let's start with what we know for certain. When an animal dies, the body begins to break down almost immediately. Cells stop receiving oxygen, organs shut down. Bacteria, the same bacteria that lived inside the animal, begin consuming it from the inside out. Within days, the body returns nutrients back into the soil. Those nutrients feed plants. Plants feed other animals. Those animals eventually die, and the cycle starts again. Scientists call this the nutrient cycle, and it's one of the most beautiful systems on Earth. A dead elephant, for example, can feed over 400 different species: insects, vultures, hyenas, bacteria, even the trees around it. So, physically, animals don't disappear. They become everything around them. Now here's where things get interesting. Because humans have never been satisfied with just the physical answer. For thousands of years, across every culture on Earth, people have asked the same question: is there something more? And the answers are fascinating. In ancient Egypt, animals weren't just respected. They were considered sacred. Cats, crocodiles, ibis, birds, jackals, all seen as physical vessels for divine spirits. When a cat died in an Egyptian household, the family would shave their eyebrows as a sign of mourning. The Egyptians believed animals had a ka, a life force that continued after death. Millions of animals were mummified. Not just cats, bulls, hawks, baboons, crocodiles. They believed these animals carried messages between the living world and the afterlife. To an ancient Egyptian, an animal's death wasn't an ending. It was a transition. Many indigenous cultures around the world share a similar belief, that animals are not below humans. They are equal spiritual beings. The Lakota people of North America believed that all living things share the same spirit, what they called Wakan Tanka, the Great Mystery. When an animal died, its spirit returned to that great source. It wasn't lost. It wasn't gone. It was simply returned. Many hunters in these traditions would perform ceremonies after a kill, giving thanks to the animal's spirit, asking for forgiveness, and acknowledging that one day their own spirit would return the same way. Death was not the end. It was balance. Here's where modern science starts to get surprisingly close to ancient wisdom. For a long time, scientists believed that consciousness, true awareness, emotion, memory was unique to humans, but that has changed dramatically in the last 30 years. In 2012, a group of the world's leading neuroscientists signed what's called the Cambridge Declaration on Consciousness. Their conclusion? Animals are conscious beings. Not just chimpanzees or dolphins, birds, octopuses, even bees show signs of emotional states. Animals feel fear. They feel grief. They feel joy. Elephants have been documented standing over the bones of deceased family members, sometimes for hours, in what researchers describe as mourning behavior. Crows hold what appear to be funerals for their dead. Dolphins have been observed carrying deceased calves for days, unwilling to let go. If animals are truly conscious, then the question of what happens to that consciousness after death becomes a very serious one. Physics gives us one more angle to consider. The first law of thermodynamics states that energy cannot be created or destroyed. It can only be transformed. Your body right now is running on energy, chemical energy, electrical energy. When you die, that energy doesn't vanish. It changes form. Heat dissipates into the air. Chemical energy returns to the earth. Electrical signals in the brain fade, but the atoms that carried them, they go on forever. Some scientists and philosophers argue that consciousness itself may be a form of energy we don't yet fully understand. And if energy cannot be destroyed, then maybe the question isn't where do animals go after death? Maybe the question is what do they become? So let's bring this together. Physically, animals become the soil, the plants, the air, and the next generation of life. Spiritually, ancient cultures from Egypt to the Americas believed animals carried souls that returned to a greater source. Scientifically, we now know animals are conscious. They feel, they grieve, they form bonds. And energetically, nothing that ever lived truly disappears. It transforms. Here's what I believe. Every animal that has ever lived, from the smallest ant to the largest blue whale, carried something real inside it. Something aware. Something that experienced the world. And when that life ended, I don't think it simply stopped. I think it went somewhere we don't have the language to describe yet. Maybe back to the earth. Maybe back to the stars. Maybe into the next living thing that draws its first breath. But gone forever? No, I don't think so. Because nothing that ever truly lived just disappears.